Oh, so before Lisa comes up, we're going to have James come up and give us a thought for the day from our Cafe Gratitude.
Morning, everyone. Morning, live streamers. Today is May 10th, and the thought of the day is, but a man's reach should exceed his grasp, or what's heaven for? So what that's bringing up for me right now is I have a lot of fear. I'm nervous up here, and I know that I can overcome that fear and replace it with love. Love for myself, love for what I'm doing, and I also found myself, we're doing Christ Challenge this month, living the Christ presence, and I found myself buying a book yesterday, or getting a book on my Kindle, that really talks about what was Jesus like, talks about his history, talks about his teaching. So I'm really trying to find out and learn about Jesus and my own spirituality in that. And the second thought today is, can you see all the stuff you have takes up physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual space? And obviously, the fear is taking up space for me right now. But I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I have mighty companions here to support me and help me. And I look forward to hearing Lisa today on prayer. And I'll turn it back to Bill.
All right. Wow. James, you need to come up here more often, man. Yeah. I love that. The idea of what was Jesus like, and looking into his life, that's an important kind of a discovery. And this is why, that's interesting also for me. And this is what when I was talking a couple weeks ago, I brought out that sentence in the clarification of terms. It said that Jesus was a man who saw the face of Christ in all his brothers and remembered God. That's what all of us are doing. We're learning to understand the mind of Christ, not Jesus Christ, the mind of Bill Christ and Susan Christ and Linda Christ, and put your name in front of it. We are learning to step into the embodiment of the Christ presence. So thank you for that reminder. And I like that other part where decluttering, right now you said fear is taking up the space of peace, really, of presence. And one of the things that we offer in our Living in Purpose Mastery course, the first thing, I think it might even be the first month, is decluttering. And Lisa brings you through, get your wallet out, get all the papers that are like cluttering up the space and get rid of them. Go to your closet and pull out all the clothes that you don't wear and repurpose them to somebody that will be wearing them and using them. Declutter your house and clean the space out so that fresh space will allow something new to reveal itself. And that's a huge thing. So that second part of the thought for the day is also important. And it's important that we, these little ideas come in and make us mindful of the things that will support us in living our Christ embodiment. And so now we're going to bring Lisa up so she can give us some insights on prayer. And we're going to ask everyone to please give a warm welcome to Lisa Natoli. Mic on?
I have a mic, but I'll pass that around. Good morning. I'm on. Are you guys on?
We're on.
Everybody on? Okay, so this morning I want to talk about prayer. What is prayer? How do you pray? And why does it sometimes appear that some of your prayers are not answered? So this is going to require that we talk about God. So I want to, as always, have this be interactive. The inspiration behind today's topic came from an email I received from a yoga teacher. And she heard one of my podcasts. I do a weekly podcast called The Lisa Show. And she heard something I said. I can't remember what it was. And she wanted me to keep talking. I said, the only prayer is thank you. That's what I said. And she told me she's a Catholic girl, and she just wanted me to keep talking more on that subject when she heard it. And then I wasn't talking about prayer on that particular show. So she said, would you please do a show on prayer? So I said yes. And she wrote me back. She was all excited. And she said that she's a yoga teacher, and a lot of people come to her with their difficulties, and they ask her to pray for them. And she said, I'm a Catholic girl. I should know how to pray. Why don't I know how to pray? I don't know how to help anybody. And she said, what do you do when somebody comes to you and their child has leukemia and they want you to pray for them? What do you do to that? So I just thought, what a great subject. And then, as if on cue, this was so weird, all I could see all over Facebook was, can you pray for me? I have a problem. Can you please pray for me? So I thought, okay, this is perfect time, because my experience is that we truly have shifted into a completely different time here in the world. So all the old ideas of who we are as bodies, what God is, for many, many people right now, those ideas are just falling away. And you stand in a space where you kind of are in a little bit of a limbo area. Like you've kind of left the old God, and you haven't quite reached the certainty yet of the embodiment of God as yourself, as love. So you're kind of in this transitional period where there's still doubt, there's still fear, but there's an openness now. And I am just so grateful for the years for myself with the practice of A Course in Miracles. I like to think of myself as a scientist. Like, I have a great connection with Nancy Fitzgerald, who is an actual scientist on paper and practice. And me, I'm a scientist in my own mind, self-proclaimed, because a scientist in my mind is somebody who experiments with things. You go into the lab and you sort of mix chemicals together. I wonder what this will do. And then you have an idea something will happen, or something will happen. Like, the Einsteins of the world, the Thomas Edisons with electricity. He knew. I heard recently 6,000 tries and failures with the light bulb. But he kept going back into the lab because he knew in his mind, his Christ mind, that electricity was available, and he just had to figure it out. Like, how do we bring what already is all around us into practical application? So my life has been dedicated to experimenting with the ideas of A Course in Miracles, particularly with healing. How does it work? How does it work? And so that naturally has moved over into prayer. What is prayer? What is God? So I want to just bring it to a really practical level. The first thing I just want to say is God is not a he. God is not a being. God is a state of being. Okay? God is a state of mind. God is love. God is not out there. God is not an entity. God is not a personality. Are we all on board with that? Is there anybody that has a question? No questions. Very good. So God is just a state of mind, right? Amazing, right? So we can go there. Like, we can all agree that if God is simply a state of mind, and the state of mind is available, and if we're feeling anything other than the total oneness that God is, we must be in the wrong place, right? If you're feeling confusion, doubt, anger, fear. It must be that you are not plugged in to the totality of all that is. So using a very simple example is anything that plugs into a wall. So I'm going to use the coffee maker here since I came in this morning and it wasn't plugged in. I was one of the first ones that was here. I got it first, but usually there is somebody here before me and somebody plugs it in. So I just want us to think about it. So we walk into this room, lights are off. That's the first thing. Anybody pray for the lights to turn on? What do? You just turn the light on, right? It's a law. I turn the light on, lights are going to go on. Let's suppose the light doesn't go on. What happened? Is God responsible? If the light doesn't come on, does anybody just decide to come sit in the chair and pray that the lights turn on? Right? You're all laughing. It's ridiculous and stupid, right? All right. I hope with the power that is in my mind, because I've practiced A Course in Miracles so consistently that I know how powerful I am. I can make these lights go on. But I didn't do that. Bill did that, right? So
You prayed.
I didn't pray. So I went at prayer is total gratitude and total power. Like I know how to turn lights on. I come in here in the morning, coffee machine's not on. What's the first thing I do? The coffee machine's not plugged into the wall. I plug it in. Does the coffee get made? No. Now I have to switch it on. And then I have to let it heat up. And then I have to pour the water in and voila, coffee. No big deal. So we don't do that though with the rest of our lives. We think, oh, somebody's sick. I have no money. Something's gone wrong. And then we pray to a God out there to change something. And we think that's normal, right? Well, the mind that is one that we all share is beginning to see that's not normal. And so I just want to open up the conversation here too. So what happened was I did a 40-minute podcast on prayer by myself, and I just read. I answered. Her name's Jen, who asked me the question on prayer, and I answered the question in 5 minutes on this podcast. Right? I should have just canceled the podcast and let it be a 5-minute podcast, but I had in my mind it should be longer. So then I started reading from A Course in Miracles, the section in the text on why some prayers are not answered. And it's a really long section. So it took me 40 minutes and I was mostly just reading. And I was I could actually hear in my voice that when you're just reading, you're sort of wah, 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 like Charlie Brown. I was boring myself, right? I'm what are we doing here? I answered a question in 5 minutes. Prayer is gratitude. That's it. You recognize there's just, when you are praying, when you're asked, and this is going to sound like a very bold thing, and we've all done it. So we've all asked for our friends and our families to pray for us, right? Or to pray for others. When you do that, you don't know who you are. You don't know God. So I want us to just open up this conversation around this. It's not bad. So what Jesus does in A Course in Miracles in something called the Song of Prayer is he tells us there's different levels of prayer as you're moving up the ladder to true prayer, which is a song of thanks and gratitude. Thanks to God for what you are. That's prayer. And what the scientists have now proven, the quantum scientists show that when you are in a particular vibration, the form changes. So here's the paradox, is that you can't have in your mind that you want a particular specific outcome. And yet, often, that particular specific outcome happens. Because if you're in a frequency of gratitude, let's just say your body's sick, somebody else's body is sick, somebody's dying, and you're here wanting body's health to be different, the child to live, the loved one to be happy, money to be there. So you're vibrating here, which means, just like the coffee maker, you're not plugged into who you are because you think there's a lack in you. You think you're identifying with the body. And when you identify with the body, you're identifying with something that's already over. So this is important. So I am not a body. Okay? This is not a concept. And the body does whatever it does. So my particular body went through sickness for 6 years. And I identified with the body. So I tried to do things to heal the body. It didn't work. And finally, I made a decision, and I prayed for 6 years for the body to heal. I prayed in my mind to have a different experience than the one that I was having. I tried special diets. I spent $20,000 on alternative therapies. I took supplements. I did all sorts of stuff recently, you know, and then something happened to me. It was a total moment of surrender. I just didn't care about healing the body anymore. And I got it. It was a total experience. I am not the body. The body is sick, not me. That was the difference. And I didn't care. I didn't care what the body did. And I didn't care if the body died. And I was having an experience that I thought it was going to die. And the mind just goes right on the ego mind goes nutso. Because I thought my purpose is not fulfilled. Like, I haven't done the work I'm here to do. I haven't cracked the code on healing yet. I haven't, I really feel like a scientist whose work is unfinished in the lab. That's why I call myself a scientist. Because I know that years from now, and it could be tomorrow, like it could be any moment. When's the moment when Thomas Edison had suddenly the light bulbs working and we're not using candles anymore? When was that moment we stopped riding on horseback? When was that moment we put an airplane in the sky? So it's just going to be another moment, and it's already been coming for the last 50 or 100 years, where the quantum scientists have really proving that when you are in a particular frequency, the form disappears and changes. Right, Nancy? Yes. The real scientists can confirm what I'm saying is true. So when you're in a condition where you want an outcome in form, and you're identifying with the form, nothing can change. And so this is where it's a little bit tricky, because you get into gratitude, total rejoicing for what you are, for the total perfection beyond the form. And then the ego mind will slip in there and say, okay, yeah, but now from here, from this frequency, I'm going to change the form. Well, guess what just happened? You just went back down to the form. So it has to be a total surrender. You have to let go of the outcome completely. And I just want to, so that's the first thing. So prayer is gratitude for what you are. That's true prayer. And when you're asking for things of the world to change, I want you to just become aware of your location. That's teaching that I use in the Healing Cure program I created, is that you can see I want an outcome in form, and that's okay. But just be aware that you're just going to stay stuck there. And so why is it that some prayers are not answered? And, it was just contained in everything I just said. Like you're in a bubble asking for a particular form, and anything can happen in that space. So right now there's a movie out, but I don't know if it's still in the theaters. And I want to go see it. Like, I think it looks interesting, but about the boy who fell through the ice, whose mother got the whole community to pray for him, and he died. Like, he was under the water, freezing ice water for 15 minutes. I think he was like unconscious or dead for 40 or something. And they all prayed for this boy to come back. And he came back. And everybody's, it's a miracle. Right? Well, my mind goes, what about the people we all prayed for and they didn't come back? And then what happens is people think, oh, I did it wrong. I'm being tested. I'm being punished. Like, so all I want to say on this, and just to use that as the example, and let's all just come on. Let's come back to this place where we know every single one of us in form, the form's going to go away. Okay? Can we all be on board with that? Right? So why are we trying to prolong it? Why do we think that I'll be the exception and then I'm just going to keep the body around healthy and vibrant forever? Or, you know what I mean? Like, this was where my mind went when I got really excited about it. I thought, okay, I'm just not going to be the body anymore. I'm not going to try to heal anything anymore, and I'm not going to spend one more dime on another alternative therapy. Can I get an amen? Because I was like, screw it, I'm done. Because every day I thought was my last day. No, I'm not kidding. I would wake up in that bed every morning, and I would just feel so sick. I would just feel, and there was days I couldn't talk. There was days I couldn't see. It was just so much physical stuff going on. So that's what Jesus is saying in A Course in Miracles, is the body calling for your attention so loudly. I couldn't get away from it. Like, sometimes the pain that we experience is so intense, right? And then we just think, I got to get out of this. I got to get out of this. So we start praying. But what I discovered through experimentation is that in the stillness, when you can just have as a practice a total stillness, like you just sink into this place and you go for a moment. It's not even a beyond the body. It's not in, it's not out. It's just a pure silence. And you can have an experience of you're everywhere. That's what I saw. I'm everywhere. I'm in every mind. I'm in every grain of sand. I'm everywhere. I can't be contained by the body. It doesn't matter if the body gets totally sick. I suddenly saw if I just keep getting sicker and sicker, so I'm using two sets of language here when I say I. Like, I is the body. Because I can't be sick. I am. Okay? That's why I can be joyful. Because nothing the body does, nothing anyone says to me, nothing anyone does to me can affect my joy in any way whatsoever. Okay? And that's a decision. I suddenly got it. So I was really in true recognition that, let's just say, I can't talk anymore and I can't see anymore. I'm totally blind, totally deaf. I can't talk. Does that affect me in any way? Not even a little. Okay? So this is where this is an uncompromising path. And this is the call for teachers now. This is what A Course in Miracles truly is. This is the place we've entered in where you just say, I want to go the whole way. Who wants to go the whole way? Right? I don't know. I just suddenly saw that this is 2,000 years in the coming. Like Jesus, 2,000 years walked the earth. Jesus, it's like when Mary Magdalene saw Jesus, she didn't say Jesus is risen. She says Christ is risen. So she knew Jesus, the man, isn't the risen Christ. Christ is the risen Christ. Christ, that which was expressing through the body. So this is, Jesus I love says that it's, when you do this work, there's a period of disorientation. As you're going from your body structure, I am Lisa, I am a body, I am sad, I am tired, I am whatever. And you're having the willingness to consider the possibility, maybe you're not that. That's all that's asked of any of us, just to consider the possibility, maybe you're not the body. And what the scientists have already discovered, and what Jesus says in workbook lesson number 7, I see only the past. So the body is already over. So the way you can look at it is that the body is denser than you are. You can look at it like that. I mean, you could just leave it behind. That's what I did. I was like, I don't need this thing. And I just left it behind. Well, the paradox is I seem to be standing in front of you in one, right? But I don't identify with it. But I still, it's such a paradox. And it's so much fun because I take incredible care of my life. I just do. I don't think about it though. I eat healthy, I shower, I bathe, I buy new clothes, I stay active, but I don't think about any of that stuff. It's just happening. And I don't have any rules. I don't have any rules around it. Like anybody who knows me, you know, I have a baseline eating healthy, but you get me around cake and it looks really good. I'm like, yeah, well, let's do it. So the guilt is gone. Like it's a totally new way of living where you are always aware. You're always aware of where you are and what's in front of you. So I just wanted to open up that conversation on prayer. And I don't have an idea to read anything like what it said. I just want to open it up for some conversation. And I thought of you, Laura. I'll get you, Bill, first, but I'd like to hear from Laura also, because I was hoping you were going to be here today, because Laura has an incredible story that she shared about her grandchild. And her grandchild came in, and the appearance was maybe the child wouldn't live. Like these things happen, right? In the world, some people come in and they don't have all like the limbs and they're not breathing correctly, or their brain's not working correctly, but I want to hear it from your mouth what you did, because when you shared that day about your practice, it really was one of no outcome. And the reason it's a paradox is because we don't want the child to die, right? We want to know the power that is all around us. And the change that's come for me over the years, so if some of you watch some of my videos from years past, you'll hear things that I said that I actually no longer believe in anymore. And one of them is sending love. That one I don't believe in anymore. Because But that was a really good middle step for me, because I went from being totally contained as a body, keeping the light within me. This is what Jesus says. Sickness is isolation. We isolate ourselves in this body identity, and we hold ourselves. Don't get too close. Don't talk to strangers. So when I had the practice of sending love, it opened me up a little bit, a lot. I was like, all right, I'm not gonna. God, my posture was really bad, even. Like I, hid my heart. It's like, and then when I started to open up and I started to imagine the love of God flowing through me now, it was a new way of seeing myself. So I started showing up in the world differently. But the problem is that there is still a Lisa that thinks there's other people that need my love to be sent to them. Do you see that? So I still, in that condition, was still seeing you with my body's eyes. Not quite there yet. You just need my love. So it's not like it's a bad thing. It's a really good, powerful middle step where I'm now in a space of compassion and patience and humility and generosity and love and kindness. Like I just want to give. So that really does get things moving. It gets you out of your own containment. And then I really got it like, oh my God, what am I sending love to if love is everywhere? Like I must not be seeing with Christ's vision if I see somebody is sick and suffering. So now it's just that total seeing only the truth. That's all I see. And what's the paradox of this work with A Course in Miracles is that Jesus is calling for us to undergo the transformation where you know yourself as self and now carry it back to others. So while you're interacting with other people, so when somebody comes to me and says, will you pray for me? Of course. The answer is always yes. In my mind, though, I'm not thinking I'm going to pray for an outcome. But when I see someone asking for prayer, I know several things right up front. Okay, they're asking for help. They don't know who they are because they're a little bit lost over here. Because if they knew who they were, they wouldn't be asking for prayer. They want to join. I see all sorts of stuff. When I see somebody ask for prayer, I'm like, awesome. Just awesome. Because now their mind's open. Like they've got a situation, and when somebody asks for prayer, it's also telling me that they know they can't figure it out themselves. It's going to have to come from a power greater than themselves. So I know how to plug in the coffee machine, and I know how to make a cup of coffee, but when it comes to healing, it's not going to come from Lisa, the self-identity. It's going to have to come from something else. And so in that moment when I'm with another, or I see something on Facebook, or somebody comes to me directly, the training that has been given to us in A Course in Miracles is how to listen in that moment to what the situation is asking for. So I never, ever could tell you what I do when somebody asks me to pray for them. I don't know until the moment somebody says, will you pray for me? And in that moment, I'm so present. I'm just like, there's movement that comes. I might say yes. Sometimes I might not say yes. I would never say no. I wouldn't, but I might in that moment see that they're open enough for me to share with them what true prayer is. But that's where like this work is so important, why I'm always encouraging people to go through the mind training and those workbook lessons. Like commit yourself to just doing the work. Bill?
I told you guys how good she is on this subject, right? She's got this. She's got this down. I love the way you describe the vibration of asking for prayer or asking to thinking that you don't have what you need, or when you ask for prayer, there's this other high vibration up here that where you know what you are, you know the self.
Mhm.
And when you were describing that, I got that verse that Jesus used when he said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do."
Mhm.
The words are not required for us,
Yeah.
because we're doing the things that Jesus did. All we need to do is go to that vibration and be aware of the experience that my brother is involved in, and just hold that. Your week 3 deliverable, do the grocery gaze.
Don't tell them.
Oh, okay. I didn't say that to 135 people. No. So, but what you
It
do
doesn't
is
matter.
you stay in that vibration. You stay in that vibe of knowing, and it is a gaze. It is it is just a beingness.
Mhm.
Stay in your beingness of knowing the truth. No right or wrong. No outcome is you're not looking for an outcome. You're just staying in that presence, and you're allowing this thought to come into that space in just a gentle sort of a noticing. And that is the Christ, because now you're embodying the demonstration that Jesus gave us. You're bringing that thought into that space of presence, and you're doing exactly what Jesus' words were telling us. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. It's not an entity. It's you, consciousness, that has a knowing of the being that is bringing that illusion into that space. So, and I also thank you for your answer on when people say, "Will you pray for me?" Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
It just doesn't need to look like it used to.
Yep.
And Lisa and I, we pray probably every night before we have dinner. We just do it, but we bless it, and we're in gratitude. We're thanking the hands and the trucks and the field that made this food. We're blessing it in gratitude. We're just being grateful for this experience that's taking place right here.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you for that.
Awesome. Thank you. I got this awesome gift that just arrived in the mail. I actually don't know the name of the person who gave it to me yet, but I'm going to find out. But she painted this for me, blessings, and like, to me, this is the healing cure. So the healing cure is that you live your life in just blessing. I bless the world because I bless myself. I am blessed as a son of God. And I keep this on my desk now, and I just brought it here today because what Jesus says is where we arrive finally, is that you recognize the spirit or identify with the body. What you see the flesh, or you identify with spirit. And it says from this point, and you must choose. That's what I love. Like, I, as a teacher, am not a magician. I don't see myself as a miracle worker with a magic wand. Whoop, whoop. I already know you're healed. So I don't, because it's kind of like that saying, you don't give a man a fish, you teach him how to fish. You give a man a fish and he eats for a day, you teach him how to fish and he eats for life. So I teach how to heal, how to know yourself, how to be in the world. Because this is what happened 2,000 years ago. People were just healed on the spot, and guess what? They still didn't know who they are. So you first, and then I want you to share your story, Laura.
You said that if you felt they were ready enough, you would tell them what true prayer is. Could you say what it is?
Yeah, it's gratitude.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
Well, I would, and again, I can't really give a stock answer on a hypothetical situation. So, but if somebody came to me, and I had somebody recently who had a child who was born with a defective heart or needed, go through some surgery. And I knew I could remind the one asking for the prayer the truth of that child. So that's what happened in that situation. So I just said, let us keep our eyes on the truth. We keep our focus on what is true. That child is whole and perfect. And you don't waver for 1 second off of that, because when the mind goes into, oh no, the child will die, you're now down where the child is, or where the mother, or the child like that doesn't even think about it. So Laura, you want to come up here?
Yeah.
Laura's got a good story.
Been a long time. I missed you all. So everything you said is absolutely true. And I was placed in that position of how true is it? First of all, for anybody out there that's new to Course in Miracles, I know when I came in, I had a problem with the word Jesus and I had a problem with the word Christ. And I don't have a problem with that today because I see it totally different. But I call Christ a lot of times the Spirit. It is a spirit in me. It's the spirit of me. It's a spirit around me. That's the Christ mind to me. And it's that God energy for me. And so, and I had to grow into being okay with certain things. So for me, my granddaughter was born 4 months ago. She came out, breathed for 10 seconds and died. And they intubated her, and only intubated her. My doctor told me later, who's a friend of mine who delivered the baby and is also my doctor. She said she literally was considered a stillborn, and I intubated her because she was your grandbaby. And then they brought her to another hospital in an ambulance and put her on ice for 4 days to try to stop any brain damage. And my son and my daughter-in-law were out of their mind in shock. Like just eyes open, shock, couldn't even talk, just shock. All I could do was stand still and hold light. That's all I could do. And I have a guide that talks to me right here. And all I kept hearing was, say nothing, stand still in the light, hold your vibration. And I'm not going to lie to you, the ego mind would keep coming in and saying, and I couldn't breathe, and my heart was up in my throat. And I would just rub my son's back and my daughter-in-law's back and say, it's good. We're holding vibration. And people that would pray for me, and they did, and I didn't ask anybody to, but people in AA did pray for me. If they would send me a text or anything, I would say, please just hold high vibration. Because I don't know what's supposed to happen, just hold high vibration. And then she survived, and they found a heart defect. And a month ago, she had major open heart surgery in Boston Children's. And again, I was there for every moment. And I can tell you, when I would end the day in Worcester, I would go home depleted. Like you said, my energy would come down because I'm fighting the ego. I'm trying as hard as I can to stay up high. But when it's one of your family members, it's tough. And I would go home and I would pray and I would cry. And I would just keep saying, please, please, Source, please keep me up there. And the next day I would hold that energy. I knew this thing that came in was of a high frequency. I knew, and I could hear it in my head because I would see her when I would meditate, even when my daughter-in-law was pregnant. This thing has something huge to carry into this world. I could feel it. I knew it, but the ego would say, maybe she's not going to live. And I would have to just stay there. And as she had her surgery for 6.5 hours, again, I'm in Boston Children's and I'm just standing still and I'm like, can't breathe. And I'm just holding light. And now I'm in a waiting room with other parents whose kids are going through all kinds of stuff you've never seen. And a lot of them, she had a heart defect. She was born without her ventricle attached. And a couple of the parents' kids had just had it happen. And one was telling me their baby was 6 months old and he had a stent put in. And my daughter and son-in-law got up. My son and daughter-in-law got up and walked out of the room because they couldn't even listen to anything. And this couple was talking to me, and I said, yeah, well, she's had an echo and she's good. She doesn't, her valve is fine. And they said, well, that's what they told us too. So here's the ego. And they said, but once they had the operation, she's got to have it done every 10 years. He has to have it done every 10 years. And I said, nah, well, that's not going to be her though. And they said, you're pretty positive of that? I said, see, I hold this vibration like way up here. And everything you're saying to me right now makes me want to come down here to fear. And I'm going to tell you, I've looked in that little baby's eyes and she's got something big. And I said, and your child does too. And she's here as a teacher, so she's fine. And no kidding, when I said it, 10 minutes later, the surgeon came in. 10 minutes later, he walked into the room looking for my son, and my son came around the corner and he said, all went well. Her ventricle is fine. She didn't have the other thing. The pulmonary, it's a one and done. She's good. And that little baby was out of the hospital in 5 days, where he said normally babies are in there for 6 weeks that have this surgery, because I held the light on that spirit. I held the frequency, and I would look in her eyes, and every time I would see her, when she finally awoken, I looked in her eyes and I could see it. This is something that's here, and I have no control over what's happening right now. All I can be is the light and the love. And if you want, and it's not a test, maybe it's my soul testing me. It wasn't God testing me or anything like that, but it was a proof to me of who we are. And she is that, and she's 100% okay, and she's chubby, and she's laughing, and she's 4 months old, and she has big doings here. So I couldn't tell you anything more than hold the light no matter what's going on.
Thank you so much. And I just love that story, Lori, when I heard it. And I loved, just when I was sitting over there, you were begging during your story, please, please, please. And I was thinking, oh no. But it was please, please, please help me to stay in this frequency. It wasn't please, please, please help the child. It was please, please, please help me to remember the truth. You see the difference? Yeah. Nancy?
There's a version of the Lord's Prayer in A Course in Miracles. Look at, speaking of
the children.
Speaking of light, look at those little beings. Thank you, Laura. That's an amazing application of what Lisa's been telling us this morning. And as you said, help me hold the illusion, or help me hold the vibration and out of the illusion. We don't hear about it very often, or I haven't heard about it very often from A Course in Miracles. But in chapter 16 on page 547, there is a version of the Lord's Prayer, which somehow feels like it fits right in with what you've been saying. So if you'd like to follow along, chapter 16, I can't tell what the section is from, 7 and page 547. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you, in which there are no illusions and where none can ever enter. Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect? The sleep of forgetfulness is only the unwillingness to remember your forgiveness and your love. Let us not wander into temptation, for the temptation of the Son of God is not your will. And let us receive only what you have given, and accept but this into the minds which you created and which you love. Amen.
Oh, man. I love that. Can you keep that up here too? Just in case. That was so good. Like it says, thank you so much, Nancy. Nancy has, can I tell you a story just about about Bill? Okay. Nancy's ex, who's the father of her son, is maybe in his last days. He's just in hospice, and I got this beautiful message from Nancy this morning. Just the details of it, like that's how we can communicate things in the world. But it was a message of joy and gratitude and just what's going on. Just that Bill's in hospice and my son is there with him, and what I also wanted to share, you prompted the memory of this, Laura, is the gift I don't want anyone to walk away here with thinking that I said that to ask for prayer is wrong, because I'm not saying that. Because what a gift when you invite people to pray. I don't ask people to pray for me. I don't do that anymore. But when I see other people asking for prayer and the whole community drops everything, that's awesome. Right? There's a total joining there in single purpose. You totally forget all your little stupid judgments, like a child is dying, I'm on it. You're giving them an opportunity to say yes. They have a purpose now. And so in that sense, everything's used in this world. So I'm only speaking to those who are here listening to this, where you understand that there's no one to pray for. That's the only purpose of me sharing today, is that you understand that it's just about gratitude. It says, I love this. Let us receive only what you have given. Well, what has God given? Only love. Let us receive that. Let us receive only what you have given. God doesn't give pain. God doesn't give suffering. God doesn't give, you're not being tested. You're not being tempted. And accept but this into the minds which you created, which you love. Amen. I just had a thought. Let me see if I can find it here. I got this message from this woman named Pat. This was from years ago, but I just wanted to read it. Let me see if I can find it here. Okay, here it is. Pat says, "Hi, Lisa. 3 or 4 years ago, I had such pain in my hands that I had difficulty dressing, driving, doing everyday life. I started reading about my diagnosis, talking to other people who had similar symptoms, and wondering how I was going to manage as I lived alone. I knew enough about truth to know that this had to stop. Many times a day, this had to stop. So I stopped looking for cures, quote unquote. I knew enough about the truth to know this had to stop. So I stopped looking for cures, and instead, many times a day, hundreds, I replaced any thought related to pain with either there is no pain in God and none in me, or thank you for my healing. I did this for months. Then one day I realized my hands didn't hurt anymore. I could lift a skillet with one hand. I could zip zippers in the back of dresses. I truly was healed, still am. I'll soon be 70 years old, feel great, and take no medications. And I still say to myself frequently, thank you for my healing. Love, Pat." So that's it. I love that message so much. She's just I realized this has to stop. Right? You come to your senses by oh my, and then her to say, I stopped looking for cures. That's amazing. So we just have a few more minutes. Who'd like to share? Okay.
Especially when I go back to my old life in another city, I'm often with people who don't know the Course and don't know the language. So I've come across a phrase that makes me feel like I can participate in respond when people want a prayer or they're looking for what they think is the cure. And I ask to pray that I'll be glad to join you in a prayer for the best possible outcome. To me, that puts it in the place of trust. For me, it means that I trust that God has a plan and this will go exactly the way it's supposed to. And I'm putting my energy with that kind of a solution. And other people can hear it however they need to hear it. My ex-husband is was a preaching atheist. And so my son is sort of caught between having been raised on both sides. So I kind of, I try to be true to me, but not push things that he isn't ready to hear yet. And one of the things I imagine is when Bill gets to the other side and he finds a couple other of his college buddies who were also pretty agnostic, at least, and not atheists. I giggle when I think, when they have to say to each other, look how wrong we were about this.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, Nancy just came up to me this morning. They put him in hospice and she's like, he's having a great time there. You know what I mean? Like we just can really start to live in gratitude. And who else would like to share anything? I knew you were, I knew it was coming. I saw that. I was like, he's got something to say.
So, Lisa, you're talking about the movie Breakthrough?
Yeah.
The 14-year-old boy that fell in the water. We saw the movie. And it sounded like what you were saying is that this was a miracle, okay, in the eyes of all the people in the town. Okay. But
What was a miracle?
that the boy survived. The doctor had written it
in
off.
the movie, right.
In the movie, you know,
yeah.
Despite all the medical treatment, he was in an induced coma, then a not induced coma, the whole thing, and he came back normal. It sound like what you're saying, I'm just looking for clarification of the miracle. Okay. So is this, you were saying in a large number of incidents like that, what about all the others that didn't make it? Okay. So is this like a normal distribution of numbers? Is that what we're talking about? Is that what you're kind of leaning toward and how you describe that?
Well, the way A Course in Miracles says it is a miracle is an expression of love. So everything's a miracle. But in the world, we think miracles are miraculous events where somebody rises from the dead like that. So all I'm saying is that everything within this world is just totally random. You know, like to pray for an outcome, I don't know. I have no idea. Like I'm not the ruler of the universe. Like I'm not the one who can say, well, that one lives and that one doesn't. Who am I to say? What I know to be the absolute truth, everyone lives. Everyone, no one dies. So that's the truth. So when somebody comes to me and wants prayer, the way I see myself is like a radio. I'm a light in the world. I only broadcast one channel, the truth. So when somebody comes to me and they're suffering, I'm only broadcasting you're whole and perfect. Like if I see somebody who's afraid, I'm broadcasting like, here I am, you're not alone. Like we're here to heal, comfort, and bless. So you become a one-way, you know, just like you're always extending. So when somebody's suffering or they're afraid, I just know like, okay, I remember how I used to be like that. But I just think that movie can make people believe in miracles, and it can cause a lot of people to feel guilty when their child died.
And I can relate to that as a new Course in Miracles student. And I can relate to what you're saying as a new Course in Miracles student, as I'm transitioning back to, okay, it's a normal distribution. There's 1,000 deaths and 1 survival. That's normal. Okay, it's the numbers, the law of the large numbers.
Yeah.
That's all I'm trying to hear here.
Yeah.
What you're saying, it's not a miracle.
It's not a miracle. Is an expression of love. One of my favorite lines, ideas in the Course in Miracles is, I think it's in the section, our psychic abilities normal, or what about psychic abilities or something? And it said, as you progress in this path, you may develop certain abilities, but it says those are temporary, and nothing can compare with the final glorious surprise of remembering who you really are. Right? So what we do in the world is we're like, oh, I'm a healer. I'm psychic. Somebody wrote to me on Facebook the other day, and she's paying to go to a psychic, and now she feels guilty because she heard something I said, and she goes, am I guilty for wanting to know the future? I said, well, you're not guilty. I said, if you're only going to the psychic to find out about the future, that's not a good reason to go to a psychic. But you don't know why you're meeting anyone. So I don't know why you're going to meet this person. I can't tell. But then I just decided to tell her about her future. I'm like, look, it's a happy one. Okay? I'm using my psychic abilities to tell you what I already know to be true. Right? We already know the outcome. So I said, just these abilities that I have abilities. I when I meet somebody, I know immediately where they are. I don't know how that is. I don't think it's like unnatural. Like I just can see how they're holding themselves, and I'm like, oh, okay. I can see where that's a problem. By the words they use, I know everything about them. Right? Not a big deal. But I don't go parading that like, ooh, look at me, I'm all special. Like, it's just like, oh, big deal. The glorious surprise is I know who I am now, and I'm free. Yeah. So thank you, everybody. So if you can join me in a circle. And thank you guys for being here. And if you would like to give a donation, we greatly appreciate it. Helps us to pay for the space, the live streaming. There's a box in the back. There's a donation button on the website, on the live stream. And we bless our tithes and offerings. I want you to think about all the gifts that you have. All the gifts that you have, like joy, love, money, kindness, care, compassion. And I want you to now think about what it feels to just start to loose it into the world. We're loosing all our gifts that have been given to us because we're here to share. And so as we think about that, we say the unity blessing of the tithes, divine love as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And I liked how Nancy Fitzgerald did it last week, that she had us really go slow with that. Divine love as me, right? Divine love, I am divine love. What does it do? It blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. So you don't have to be afraid anymore. Would you like to do the closing prayer, Miss Kelly Russell?
Sure.
There you go.
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Rock it on.
Rock on, rock your joy. I wanted you all to tell Kelly Russell, as we know, is always rocking her joy. She has a website called rockyourjoy.com. I don't know if you all know that. I wanted to tell the whole world who's listening,
Thank you.
rock your joy.
Thank you.
Thank you. .com.
Spirit, thank you. We have such gratitude today for being here together, for being joined together and listening to this awesome expression of God in the world through Lisa, and reminding us that we need do nothing, that we are the light of the world, that we are already whole and perfect, and that all we need do is to open ourselves and allow your light to flow through us into the world, connecting all of us, those of us who know who we are, those of us who are on our way to finding out and remembering who we are.
and so it is. Amen. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
It was awesome.
Oh, thanks.
you. We loved every minute of it. You're so cute.
you.